The Ironworks Barbecue in Austin, a quintessentially Texan restaurant. Brisket and ribs on the menu, and world have your say on the roof. 400 miles south, the city of Monterrey, Mexico's richest, but like many places close to the border, it's also been the scene of bloody violence connected to drug cartels.
Well, it's very common for people here to know someone who has been in a shooting or even themselves to be in a shooting. I was myself in a shooting about a year ago, going out of a party of a few friends. We were just getting in the car when we heard the shootings right behind us. In our attempt to escape from the shooting, we drove around and found ourselves right in the middle of it. Luckily, we were able to escape, but I know that people were killed that day, and it's very common. It happens, well, not anymore, but it used to happen every other night.
Hi, this is Joy Diaz in Austin. I'm a reporter but one of the things that I clearly remember about Monterrey is we spent Christmas almost 4 years ago there, and it was the loveliest city. Lots of arts organizations, very welcoming, very beautiful, and just to hear what has been going on breaks my heart, but I'm very hopeful because I'm thinking that the people in Monterrey are known for being very stubborn, and that can be, sometimes it's taken as a joke, but it can be a really good thing when you think about the future, and looking at the future with hopefulness. I really hope that stubbornness comes out in making sure that the city flourishes again, because it's definitely one of the jewels in Mexico.
Hey, it's Daniela here. Thank you for your opinion, and you're right. We are very stubborn people here. We have been doing a lot of things as citizens. The government has done its work, of course, but we're doing things too. People are going out on the streets. People are not letting themselves down just because there are bad things happening. And we were talking just right now, and we all agree that things are getting better, slowly, but they are getting better.
Recently, I went to Laredo, Mexico, and we hadn't gone in about a year because our relatives had told us, don't cross the border. It's very dangerous. People are getting beheaded and kidnapped and the whole works. And basically, we went just for Mother's Day. We hadn't been there in years, so we went, and while we were there, this individuals stopped me, and they said, I want you to do me a favor. And I said, I don't know you. And they said, yeah, we're here from the corner. I says, no, I grew up here, and I know everybody, and I don't know you. These guys are called halcones, and they're like individuals that are the eyes of the cartel to see if there's anything out there. And basically, like my relative said, you got to be careful here.
You were saying before we came on air that this family member has effectively been dragged into this by the drugs cartels, because you either join them or you're killed by them.
Yes, the thing is, he was forced to be part of the group. Otherwise, they would kill his whole family. And about a month ago or 2 months ago, a whole group of people went to his house and beat the heck out of him, almost murdered him. What they do is, if they beat him up and they go check in the hospital, if they're not dead yet, they'll go kill him. So somebody took him out of the hospital so that he won't die.
We hear about the 70,000 deaths linked to drugs and drug cartels. Do you think the US does have any responsibility for those deaths and for what is happening in Mexico?
Mexico cannot solve this issue by itself, neither can the United States. Money moves one way, drugs move the other way, guns move one way. So it's an issue that has to be solved with both nations. Now, we've seen there's been a pattern for this before, which was on Colombia, when Colombia was riddled with violence in the 80s, out of control terrorism, even worse than it is in Mexico now. At some point, the President Uribe and the United States government finally got to cracking down on the violence and got that under control. Of course, there's some historical hurdles we got to get over. For example, in Mexico, there is this sense of sovereignty that's very strong, which is obvious. Living next to such a powerful country, it's understandable. But we need to work together, both countries, to solve this issue.
Hello, this is Juan. I'd like to pick up some of what you were saying about the co-responsibility issue for both countries. I mean, we know that a lot of guns come into Mexico through the U.S., through the border and through this border that we have very close, and also from Mexico to the U.S. goes a lot of drugs. So I would like to hear for you guys in Austin, how do you feel about the situation, about the traffic of guns and about the traffic of drugs?
I think the core of this problem really is the drug use in America. If we can attack drugs themselves and the use of drugs and addiction, I think that a lot of this can be solved, because without customers, the drug cartels won't have any money. They won't have the reason to move drugs over here. If we get people into therapy, into rehab, and really more education about getting away from drugs, I think that could be a good solution.
Well, hi, this is Rocio, and I would like to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, I do that we have to be both giving a good effort about that, and that also, even though that we feel tempted to move, I can tell you that I have very good friends over there, because I went to the University of North Texas in Denton, and then I moved back, and my older brother is now living in McAllen. So some of the time I really feel tempted just to move there and make an effort and save some money and take my family and go over there so we can kind of escape of what is going on. Even though we love Texas and we go very often, we have to stay and make an effort to do things great and be out of this situation as soon as possible.
No, I absolutely talking about it. Let me say something. No, I absolutely talking about it. Let me say something.
Hello and welcome back to World Have Your Say. This is Juan Carlos Perez from Monterrey. We are in the beautiful and very atmospheric restaurant, El Rey del Cabrito, and we have some very young guests here. 3 weeks ago, President Obama visited Mexico, and he and President Enrique Peña, they talk about a border for the 21st century. They didn't explain what that means, but they say the future between Mexico and United States are the border for the 21st century. What do you think about that?
Hello, this is Juan speaking. I found it kind of contradictory, I don't know, calling it a border from the 21st century and having a very big wall all along the borderline, built, having a lot of immigrant issues like what's happening in Arizona with all the, the reforms and all of that. So I just wanted to point out, like, how it's going to be a 21st century if there are some kind of efforts against of maybe this statement.
I would like to comment on that. I think you're right. And I do think that President Obama has one of the best intentions, because it has been one of the presidents that has paid more attention to the immigrants. My question will be, what is going to happen when he ends his period? Because even though that he has great intentions, we know that every president thinks differently, and it has the opportunity to make things change. So is this going to continue after Obama?
Yeah, we must say there is a very big border. No, it's almost 2,000 miles, and it's the most frequently crossed international border in the world. 350 million legally crossing every year. So how can we make that border for the 21st century?
I think we need a more intelligent border, especially with more. America has a lot of technology they can use, definitely, but they also need to work more with their own people, the border agents, because sometimes they are so rude to Mexicans, and it doesn't matter if you're crossing by foot, by car, or on a plane. Sometimes they simply they make jokes, or they can say things that are somehow offensive, but you can't say anything because you are risking your entrance to the country. So, and the funny part is that we are going there to leave money. I mean, we're putting a lot of money in America, and they need the money.
The trend has been a increased militarization of the border, use of unmanned aerial drones, surveillance cameras, fencing, all sorts of technology in combination with lots of more quote-unquote boots on the ground, which is basically Border Patrol agents and ICE agents. And that the question now with the comprehensive immigration bill is, in exchange for a pathway to citizenship for undocumented people in this country, if the trade-off is going to be increased in criminalization of immigration, more border security, more detention centers, and more immigrant prisons. And I think that may be the kind of dangerous ground that Obama and the Democrats are going down because they want to get something done.
Well, I kind of take issue to the idea that Obama's been great for immigration. I know he talks a good game, but as an immigration lawyer, what we saw in his first 4 years was more deportations than the last 8 years of President George W. Bush. So immigration is a good issue for him during election times. He had promised to reform immigration in his first year in office. And when he had the most political capital, what he did is he did health care and just ignored the issue of the border. So he tends to react to elections. And unfortunately, he likes the issue more than the solution, I believe.
We have a question from Adela posting on Facebook from somewhere in the U.S. Why do they think that those who are here in the U.S. illegally shouldn't be prosecuted for breaking the law? I'll just like to point out that I know a few illegal immigrants who have been in the U.S. for years and years on end, and they have made the move to be naturalized as citizens, but the process takes so long. Last time I talked to them, I'm sure they've been on the waiting list for like 11 years, and I think that's just a really long time. People aren't really having the purpose of, oh, I'm going to break the law, I'm going to be illegal. They're just trying to get to a better life, and they're trying to make the change to be a U.S. citizen. It just takes a really long time.
I think the whole situation is very, very sad because you're talking about people who cross illegally, but you're not thinking about what drove them there. And you're not thinking about the future that they're going to have there. You're talking about, well, they take jobs because there's no one here and they're ghosts and they will do anything. But how you stop to consider that maybe these people are prepared, maybe they studied, maybe they pay a lot of money for their education, and they will end up doing gardening. In some cases, it is true. In some cases, it is true they have no studies and they have no preparations. But the whole discrimination that you have against immigrants, it's so sad. We have immigrants here too. We have people coming from South Latin America, and we don't. Well, at least I haven't seen that kind of discrimination, not in the way that Americans do.
I think we have to be somehow honest because, in reality, we are also we do discrimination.
But we're also a passing country. They are going to America.
Yes, but they have a very hard time in Mexico. I think the real point here is we need to understand that we have people willing to do jobs. And the United States, they need these people. So America needs to work out a way for people to get into the country, to do work, and get back to Mexico.
And I wonder, as we sit around this table here on the balcony at the restaurant, do you think there is, within Texas, within Austin, even wider across the US, are there misconceptions about Mexicans? Lots of nods.
Yes, I'm a product of an illegal alien. My father had a business in Laredo. He was a butcher. He came across back in the 60s, and he was doing construction work just to make life exist for the family. So he filled out the paperwork to become a resident, and eventually he became a resident, and eventually he became a citizen. The whole purpose of illegal aliens is that purpose, is to cross, make money, send it back. Now, because of the terrorism, the drug cartel, the size has changed. Come, stay, and live here because you can't live over there.
I guess my experience is my family has been in Texas for generations, and the idea of viewing Mexicans almost one and the same. I mean, we're Tejanos, Latinos, however you call it, but I mean, we didn't move, the border did, and my family's been here for so long. I mean, we've had our land stolen from, lawyers and just calling us Mexicans and things like that. And but it's still one and the same, because it's almost, there's that identification. I mean, they're gonna see brown people however they see brown people, and I think that's one huge obstacle that people kind of have to overcome, that it's not just all brown, there's different shades of it, and I think that is, I guess, my experience.
Yes, I had the experience when I had friends come over from the United States that they feel very uncomfortable because especially the Latino that are over there from many years, like you said, in the United States they're not considered like white Americans, so they're always like, you're Hispanic, you're Latino, you're Mexican, but then you come to the country and you're not Mexican either because you don't speak Spanish, and then we see you and we see brown and we believe that you must speak Spanish to be a Mexican. So there's a very clear misconception about that. And it made my friends feel really uncomfortable. I don't know what's your opinion about that.
Well, I don't know. I had the chance to live in Washington, D.C. for a time. And when I was there, like, a lot of people will ask me, are you Mexican, or are you like Latino, or are you like that? And I was like, okay, I'm Mexican. But I met people, like you were saying, Rocio, that live over there, and they don't feel even American, they don't feel Mexican, but then they come here, and they say it's like an stereotype from Mexicans to that people, because they say like you have no roots because you don't belong here and they don't want you over there. And I think it's something very important to point out.
When you made the point that you feel neither American or Mexican and neither community welcomes you as your own, the whole table just nodded.
This is Jose. I have family in Mexico, but I was born and raised in Austin, and I speak Spanish, but I don't speak it as often because all of my friends here in Austin mostly speak only English. So when I go visit my family, sometimes my Spanish is a little off, even though I have good pronunciation. Just some of my grammar just really isn't happening. And I have that struggle of, see, I identify because my family's from Mexico and I'm Mexican, but I'm also American. And it's kind of a loss of culture just a little bit because I don't know all the history of Mexico because never really learned it. It was all American history in school. So I have that struggle a lot where, people ask me, so are you Mexican? It's like, yeah, I'm Mexican, but I'm not. I'm American. And it's just a constant identity shuffle, really. It's two sides to one coin.